Polarity is an upcoming Numenera actual play that follows the same story across two different parties using two different systems, one side told in the Numenera native Cypher System, and the other with EN Publishing's advanced 5th edition, augmented by Monte Cook Games' Arcana of the Ancients and Beneath the Monolith 5e supplements. The first episode, Polarity Exegesis, will air as a premiere video-on-demand release on March 19th, along with a special giveaway that will run for the first week of the premiere. More details on that later. This video will dive into the Cypher System party, revealing the narrative premise, the players, and their characters ahead of the premiere this month. Polarity Exegesis is a Numenera game based on material found in the very heart of the game's lore. Set in the Beyond in the city of Piccola, a recent discovery in the Lambent Fields, a contested wasteland of glimmering fascination and hidden secrets, has caused a political fracture. The body of an automaton was discovered mere weeks ago in the shimmering drit of the Lambent Fields, 3 times the height of a human with multiple heads and arms, covered in symbols and bearing 2 mysterious objects, a ceramic bowl and an object containing cryptic pictograms. This discovery has solidified the desires of the city director, Stackle Spire, to ensure the city maintains ownership of the site. Meanwhile, the Populous Priory, a religious organization in the city, sees this discovery as one of the ancient gods of the past, necessitating religious observation and devotion. Another group, the Land Laws, believes the Lambent Fields to be a burial ground for giants, best not disturbed and instead treated as a place of respect to not anger the past. Lastly, the Lambent Order believes these discoveries belong in a museum, a strange twist of observation and reverence for the past guiding their desires. But this is not all. From far out in the west, the Order of Truth, the quasi-religious organization that holds tremendous political power in the Steadfast, has arrived in the region as well, but this time with an agenda they are keeping to themselves. They have made their own trips out to the Lambent Fields to see and study the discovery, but as Outlanders, their presence hasn't been without its own controversy. Polarity Exegesis starts with this as the scenario that will entangle the lives of 4 individuals living in the area, each with their own allegiances to the political fractures of Piccola. This is their story with its own discoveries to be made.
My name is Alex, and I will be playing Fidget, who is a confident Jack who explores yesterday.
I'm Lucas Santana, and my character sense, I'm a mysterious nano who wanders the wasteland.
Hello, I'm Michael Stanley, and I'm playing Armada Spire. She is a clever Arcus who entertains.
Yo, what is up? My name is Paul, and I'm playing as Isip Madelium. And Isip is a graceful wright who employs magnetism. And fun fact, the name is a little bit of a nod to some Tagalog words. So you could Google it and try to figure it out. It's not spelled the same, but you could try.
I've never played an archer before, so I wanted to play someone who was sort of fit that mechanical role of like light, agile, difficult to pin down archer type character.
The main thought that I was having when making the character was just in terms of like knowing about the Cypher System and kind of what the Cypher System tends to reward. So like solving problems and you know, discovering new information or objects or whatever.
Just wanting to play a non-combat related character, wanted to be able to use my wits, come at this at a different aspect, be able to support people, just use my overall wits. And I have played some type of clever type characters before, but this one really struck to me the way that Numenera kind of portrays this. And so I kind of put it together and thought it was a really good character that would be fun to play. So
I was really thinking about a character that I could really see in my head and sort of not just like aesthetically grasp onto, but also intuitively grasp onto. I think especially going through building the character, trying to strike the balance of like things that I feel like I'd be able to embody, but also maybe let out some parts of me that like maybe I wouldn't immediately show to like a social setting, if that makes sense. This is why I have my gargles on. Like I just had thought of like somebody who's great with mechanics and really fine things. You know, I'd imagine if they were here in modern day, they'd be really good at like soldering chips and stuff, right? Like really micro things, even though they're kind of like maybe seen as like a little bit of an oaf, but I feel like that oafness or that like that part of it comes into play when I get really impatient and I really just want to have situations where I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, like maybe not react in the best way.
Personally, when I make a character, one of the things I always really like is I like imagining a character's usability in combat. So it was a question to me of like, okay, well, do I make a character that has specialties that might not actually be relevant to this, or do I make a character who has specialties that are, relevant to what we're doing, but might not be that interesting to me? I know I like playing nanos because they have a lot of versatility in terms of play, and that's always my main mantra when it comes to playing. And then the Wanders the Wasteland focus gave me a lot of options that were useful in both scenarios, so very useful for combat, but also just as useful for non-combat stuff, for like finding things or gaining information about like ancient stuff and weird stuff. And that's so like when I read that I was like, okay, this is the one, this is what I have to do.
I ended up going Jack because it just seemed more fun going into this. I have no real expectations about what's going to happen, and so I figured, you know what, rather than putting all my eggs in the basket of combat, I'm going to just sort of grab a bunch of stuff and see what works. And Explores Yesterday is because like it's why I always play like wizards or stuff in D&D, because like every campaign is about magic. Every big bad person is always a wizard of some kind. That's my favorite way to interact with the standard fantasy setting, is be magic, because chances are you're going to be talking about magic a lot, and so you get to engage a lot. And so that's why I picked Explores Yesterday, because it's Numenera. It's about exploring yesterday. It's about sort of engaging with the history and delving and looking at old stuff. And I wanted to be able to really engage with that in a very hands-on and direct way.
Yes, I think most of the persuasion skills and then pairing that with entertainment kind of gave me the idea for this kind of rock starish pop star kind of thing, and using that popularity to create our own artistic community. Just a couple of things when they came together just made me see this character in a whole different light.
Like the ciphers we chose are like support ciphers, because I feel like in the thick of it, like I feel like my skills aren't going to be super great when I'm like thinking on the fly. When I have the time, I could solder something super nice and like really like complex, but then in the moment I'll probably try to punch a door open instead of trying to think of a better way to do it. So I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm always a big fan of any kind of abilities in games that allow synergy between like the party. Like some of the most incredible experiences that I've had, although this was mostly me as a GM watching it happen in front of me, is when players start, like, they've been using their abilities sort of individually, and then one day suddenly realize, wait a minute, if we stack all these abilities on top of each other on this character, then they will essentially become very powerful. I just think that's cool, because it's like everybody gets the feeling like they had a hand in doing whatever was happening, even if their only contribution to it was just like giving somebody some benefit in order to do the actual task. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm looking forward to as a nano.
I'm also really excited about the salvaging mechanics, because I always love the idea of not only like, looting things that are easily lootable. I love the idea of picking things apart, especially since you don't get understanding Numenera when you take salvaging. And so I love the idea of someone who's like, I really kind of don't know what any of this means, but I know what I'm doing. That's a really interesting sort of dichotomy. And that's how, a lot of stuff kind of works. Like even at my job, it's like we have the engineers who know why stuff is working, and then we have the techs who actually like work on the machines. And so I really like looking at the distinction of, I know how to do this and I know why this happens.
I really like plans, and I think because it like lines up with my character like pretty well. And I also feel like the way that I viewed RPGs and like tabletop RPGs in general are very much like action based, and I think like having the plans like built into my character, it gives me a little bit more time to like really sit back and not think about like all out attacks, because that's how I play a lot of everything, right? Like I don't care if I if I die in things, because I'm just all about go 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 go. Like I don't strategize things, right? Like I just really love going deep into something and then just like, you know, if I die or whatever, like who cares? But I feel like especially because this is going to be a one shot, there's a little more at stake there. And I think having these abilities that aren't all about attack, that aren't so immediate, will kind of like force me to play this a lot differently than I would like any other game.
Armada's mother is the political leader of the community. Since she's pretty well connected throughout the community, or well liked, she flexes those abilities to get, and you know, her mother's name a little bit, to be able to get into the site in the fields where this giant machinery thing is. And so and she needs money to help her cause, so you know, she'll help you get in there. She doesn't actually go in, but she knows who to talk to get you in, and you know, sets up for the guard not to be there at that time. She's not like opposed to her mother, and she understands that her mother is a bit of a capitalist, because it's about free trade. The money could bring a lot of prosperity to the community, and I understand that there are some, but things should be negotiated. There should be ways of working this out. Everybody should be able to get what they need out of this. You know, the Numenera is used in different ways in other communities. Why can't we find ways of doing this? I kind of have this keytar idea that I can be able to, it's kind of my Numenera, and how my ciphers can come into play. Like she can play the sounds or use it like a speaker or do different things with it, and having a right as well in our thing, which I thought that would be a good way of pairing up. Like he's kind of maybe my tech advisor or something in that manner, that he's helped me figure those things out. She kind of wants to set up her own community away from her mother that's more focused on arts and storytelling and whatever, painting, and just have these artisans together, because it seems to be everybody's just struggling to survive, but art is important. You know, it brings people together, and she really feels that this is important, and it's a thing that doesn't get away. She's kind of well known as telling some very good stories. She hasn't really been political, but I think that kind of sends to her nature that she's doing that on purpose so she can be more popular throughout the area. She is basically kind of a community gal. She doesn't go out much and adventure much, but I'm sure that she'll have to find another location, or at least be able to carve off something for her new community that she'd like to have.
So a lot of what we were talking about during our session 0 was like the specific location of basically being sort of on the edge of this sort of vast wasteland, basically. And so like what I was really sort of picturing and thinking about when we started talking about this, and then I started really getting a sense of the character, I was really thinking about this in terms of who is this person outside of like what we're going to be doing and outside of the main thing, and then taking that and relating it back to a new discovery being made of some ancient piece of technology. And so like that thought kind of then went into, well, if he's wandering the wasteland, like what are his specific wanderings about? And I started thinking about like, well, maybe he's like a guide, like the sort of person who like people hire to like lead into the wastes, to like basically somebody who knows the land, who understands survival and that sort of stuff, and can help people who don't. And then kind of branched that out into like, well, he's also a survivor though, which means he probably kind of takes whatever comes along. So not just guides, but also like, you know, scavenging and that kind of stuff. And then that found I had a way of like, from there it sort of related naturally back to the plot threads, especially as some of the other players started making their characters. Then it started kind of all coming together. When it came to like as far as specific plot threads, I guess I wasn't thinking in terms of like the specific plot threads, but more how the character fit into the world around those plot threads, and then using some of those things to not necessarily relate to like specific plot threads, but rather to like find a way that any number of those could hook the character and be interesting to the character.
I like to go along with the sentiment that the discoveries should be left alone for fear of like disturbing things. And I think that has come from my meticulous nature, especially with crafting machinery and such, because I see how one little thing can greatly affect whether something works or is completely destroyed. And I think that mentality is very much ingrained in how I think about things, especially because I mean for ECIP, like the past is kind of like blurry for other people in terms of where I come from, because a lot of my lineage is more attached to my apprenticeships and not really my family. So like a lot of the way that I view life is very much has to do with like my trade. And I think that's very much like influence how I think about a lot of things. So it's like, you know, you have discoveries and like, you know, kind of venturing into that unknown, since I treasure like knowledge that has been passed down so much and this is so unknown, like I don't want to mess with that. So I think it should definitely be respected and left alone, because I'm not looking forward to what would happen if we do anything but that.
I really like playing religious characters in settings where the religion is not already proven. Like in Numenera, where it's like you have a lot of people treating this technology as like a religious sort of experience or from like some sort of divine origin. Like, honestly, it fucking might as well be to a large extent, right? You know, the ability to like go to space or make a big, you know, 6-armed robot monster man is like just so far beyond the capabilities of like regular people. It's like when people show like the biblically accurate angels, all these weird looking monstrosities, and they're all like, "Be not afraid," and like, you're afraid because of course you are. And it's like that. You've got these entities from like ancient history that speak weird languages. I get why people would like, it feels right that people would treat this as like a religious experience. And beyond that, I like the idea that people process wonder differently. People process things bigger than themselves differently. So you have some people, like the woman who sort of put together that photograph of the black hole. Like some people dig in deep and they learn and they explore and they create and discover incredible, great things. And other people, and this is no less no less important, like other people really kind of bask in that awe. There is an aspect of seeing something that's much greater than yourself and wanting to be part of it, even if you don't understand it. And so if you can understand the concept of a black hole and take a picture of it, that's one thing. But like if you're some, ninth world nobody and you see this thing and you don't understand it, you can still want to be a part of that wonder. And that's kind of what I'm going for. Someone who wants to be part of something that she knows is bigger than herself.
Fidget, Rylan, Armada, and ECIP will be embarking on their adventure into the unknown discoveries and consequences of the mysterious revelation in the Lambent Fields soon. How the unfolding of what's to come will test their perspectives and allegiances remains to be seen. Polarity Exegesis will premiere on March 19th here at the Infinite Construct on both YouTube and Twitch as a pre-recorded session. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Infinite Construct for more Numenera, Cypher System, Advanced 5th Edition, and Science Fantasy gaming content. And don't forget to keep an eye out for more announcements regarding Polarity and beyond.